it was an incredible win by the Hawks, a gutsy win considering what was on the line, and what a time to produce their best footy of the year. They completely outplayed Collingwood, who have now lost 4 of the past 5. We'll have a deep dive on that. But Jason Dunstall, David King and Lee Montagna, the Hawks finals campaign is back on track.
It is, and I agree with Jack. I think that's the best that they've performed all year. There looked to be some real solidarity across the board. They attacked when they had the opportunity. They looked efficient going forward. When they make the most of those inside 50s, it makes such a difference to the Hawks. They don't get then beaten and hurt on the counter-attack. So I thought it was pretty comprehensive. And I guess the weakness that I perceive in their makeup is the midfield really stood up tonight.
Yeah, we didn't get the Thursday night thriller that we were hoping for, Sarah. We still can't get one, but it did flip the season on its head for me. When you take a look now, there are some real concerns with Collingwood going into a game next week against the Adelaide Crows. Can they bounce back? And Hawthorn, I agree with the guys, it's their most impressive win of the season. They needed to really take a scalp against the top 8 team. They'd only won a couple of games, which were arm wrestles in Tasmania against the Giants and Adelaide. But to do this on the MCG with some offensive prowess, which I wanted to see from them. I wanted to see if they could score against one of the better defences in the competition. We know that Hawthorn can defend and apply pressure. They've been really consistent. But to do that tonight, yeah, they've made a statement.
There's nothing better for a football club to leave trauma behind. And Collingwood now are in a flat spin with their defensive 50 work, which is their best midfield mix. I don't know. There's question marks now. We've talked about the heavy reliance on Nick Dacos. You can avoid that answer all you like, but it's obvious for all of us to see. And Jace, I hate to say it, but they're back. Your boys are back.
Well, I'll tell you what was pleasing. I think from a Hawthorn perspective, to see the continued resurgence of James Sicily. I mean, when you put him alongside Barras and Battle and Scrimshaw down back, they're so good in the air. They're winning one-on-one contests. They rebound well. They look really good behind the footy again, and I think that's incredibly important. Having Sicily playing well, I just think it rubs off so much on his teammates.
They're leaders. I mean, if you go leaders versus leaders, they were awesome tonight. When you absolutely had to have it, Joey, you can go through the Hawthorn lineup, but Newcombe stood up. Sicily stood up. Battle and Barras, they're leaders down there now. They stood up. And it allows the lesser lights to float in and out of the game.
Yeah, great call. And on the flip side, Collingwood, 20 plays with 100 games, but they look rudderless, really, with their leadership on what they were trying to do throughout the game. They couldn't problem solve. They couldn't work out how to stop Hawthorn and how they could challenge themselves. But I thought the midfield, Jason, of the Hawks, you mentioned it there. We thought it was going to be maybe an area that Collingwood could exploit them, but led by John Newcombe, I thought they were sensational in the coalface tonight. For him to bounce back the way he did, to outscore Collingwood by 30 points, their second best return for the year. You know, they threw some other names in there, Kingy, which we'll touch on, but, you know, Ward and Nash, they just do enough. They did enough, and Lloyd Meek led the way. He was brilliant in the ruck.
Well, those two there that you can see in the picture on the graphic, John Newcombe, that's one of his best games of the season. Well, that's why he won the best and fairest last year. He was playing like that on a weekly basis. And Lloyd Meek, well, I thought it was a masterclass from him. We know how good Darcy Cameron's been all year, taking the intercept marks and working forward and working back. But for Meek to push forward and kick 3 goals, as well as doing what he did around the ground and his hit-out work, well, you can see the effect that it had in terms of hitting the scoreboard.
So Hawthorn, obviously a huge story, and what they've done to breathe new life into their finals campaign tonight is massive. But the other big story and the big fallout is on the Collingwood Football Club, who after round 17, Jason, was sitting 10 points clear at the top of the table. The collapse since then has been stark.
Well, it has been, particularly when you look at 139%, and they've dropped 14.8, nearly 15% in the space of 5 weeks. That's massive. To lose 4 of the last 5. They have been against fellow top 9 teams. We get that. They're competitive. But when they got that 10 points clear, we all sat here and thought, oh, they've prepared beautifully. They can manage their players now. They can pick and choose the way they head to September. All of a sudden, they're one of the teams in the top half of the table that have the biggest queries over them, just about how well they're going, Kingy.
Well, they've got queries you don't want. Their queries are defensive queries. I mean, we've always talked about them being the best defence in the competition to probably round 12 to 14. But over the last 8 weeks, they're the easiest team to move the ball coast to coast against. And their back 50 now is a real concern. I mean, Frampton looked all at sea. We don't know how Jeremy Howe is going to come through tonight. Clearly he misses next week. But how is he long term? Moore's not the player right now that we had 6 weeks ago.
Yep.
So I think they've got real concerns defensively behind the ball.
Yeah, we flagged it like through the most part of the season, their back 50 was elite and their efficiency going inside 50 was elite. And it was covering maybe a few areas of concern with their ball movement and defending ball movement. But now that both ends of the ground are sort of falling down, they're just a bit clunky. Their offense early, Jason, we're watching their first quarter and they weren't really sure where they were trying to send the ball. And then, Kingy just summed up defence in the D50. Now it's all starting to look a bit broken. And they've got a bit of work to do to try and get their system back because there are areas of their game now that are becoming real red flags.
Have a look at those scores against there. The thing for me, the big alarm bell for me is they started to look fumbly and they started to panic, which means your confidence is shot. And that's something you've got to get back very, very quickly because you can't just go out and pick it up off the supermarket shelf. We saw some incredible fumbles out there and then panic hand passes. So I don't quite know what's happened between what had transpired up until 6 weeks ago to where it's got to now. Maybe the good teams have just caught up and maybe just worked them out a little bit, or they've had a few players drop off. I don't know what it is, but they need to discover something quickly.
So to get it back, just your opinion, do you get it back with speed in the midfield to try and cater for some of those turnovers? Or do you shore up your back line? Do you look at your half-back flankers? Does Pendlebury have to go to half-back? I mean, what do you do structurally? What can Craig McRae do to assist?
To me, they've lost a bit of composure with the football. And maybe there's a few mixing through the midfield now that aren't particularly good kicks or hurry their kicks, don't hang on to it and use it the way a couple of select ball users like the Dacos boys do. I don't know. Maybe they need to change the personnel a little bit.
It's confidence for me. I reckon when you fumble, you start doubting yourself and you just start losing confidence, whether it's in the system, your individual performance, some teammates, and it's just starting to sort of unravel a little bit. And I think in all facets, behind the ball, there's been a bit of talk about Dan Houston. He got a bit of ball tonight, didn't use it well at all. Darcy Moore, they've had some continuity issues, players coming in and out, and I don't think the midfield mix is right. I heard you throughout the call. I don't think... I mean, they probably didn't plan for it, but having Tom Mitchell, Ned Long, Sidebottom, Pendlebury all through that same midfield, it was 2-1 pace and they got found out.
We know how important momentum is. Brisbane were not the best team of the season last year, but they were the hottest in September. Sydney were fantastic at the beginning of the year and then fell off towards the end of the year. So whatever Collingwood have done in the first 17 weeks really counts for nothing right here, right now. They have to rediscover something and see if they can get that momentum back. Otherwise, this will be a wasted year.
Yeah. Joey just touched on it then, and we did it on First Crack Preview. Continuity's huge. They've had coming into tonight, they had 13 players play all games over the last 5 weeks. 3, 4, 5 changes a week over the last 5 weeks. It doesn't help get that cohesion and that stability that you need. I mean, sometimes you are what you are. They look a bit rattled. They look a bit at sea with their ball movement and their surety to take possession or to leave a man. So I saw Frampton leave his man probably 4 times tonight and get it totally wrong. Missing footy has an impact.
I look forward to Craig McRae's presser because he's the one that had the confidence pre-game. He said, we've got all this experience out there. Just got to let them play. They know what to do. Let them go out and play. But they're not going out and playing. And they look a little bit lost and they don't have that confidence. So there's some powwows need to be had down there.